Chapter 23 Finale Scarlet. Every step Scarlet took from the palace felt like the move in the wrong direction. To avoid the chaos of Legend's midnight maze, which had taken over all the outer space palace walls, Scarlet had asked Nicholas for another meeting spot. He responded by sending a hand-drawn map with clues. She imagined he was trying to romance, and if the map had been from Julian, it would have worked. But instead of feeling romance, Scarlet felt as if she were making a mistake. She should have told Tella that she was going to see Nicholas. She told Tella she was calling off the game, but she hadn't confessed she was telling Nicholas this in person. Deep down, Scarlet knew it was a questionable choice to leave the safety at the palace grounds. After yesterday's incident with the poisoner, she had not heard of any other fates causing havoc for fun. But as Scarlet walked Belinda's steep streets, she saw multiple fates in the form of warnings and wanted posters tracked up by Legend's guards. The flickering pages were all over the city. Some cautioned people not to accept drinks from strangers. Others had the word "wanted" above sketches that resembled Tella's description of the fallen star. But they didn't explicitly say that they were actually fates. The partygoers on the street just strolled by them. Scarlet wanted to shake everyone that walked past and make them read the notices. She knew the face fed off of fear, but everyone looked far too vulnerable. Scarlet reached into her pocket, checking once again to make sure the rubbery key was still there. At least she was protected. If she wanted to escape, all she needed to do was shove the key in the closet door. And yet, she couldn't shrug off her unease. Even her dress seemed uncertain. As she followed the map of the docks on the edge of the city, Scarlet's gown turned a weary shade of brown, perfect for being overlooked. A few more steps over rookery wood and her nose ticked with the familiar sense of salt and fish and forever wet wood. Drista, the tiny isle where she spent most of her life, had always smelled like this. Rather than making her homesick, it made her want to flee the same way Drista had always made her want to flee. But Scarlet had decided after Caraba that she would not let fear rule her. She counted the docks, following the map Nicholas had drawn for her until she came up along a wharf covered with black and gold carpet that led to a ship that looked like a floating palace. This hall was carved with ornate images of mermaids and mermen holding tridents and seashells. The masts were decorated as well, giants with crowns of stars around their heads as they held out sumptuous purple sails. It was almost offensive in its finery. The ship belonged to someone who thought extremely highly of himself. This wasn't the impression she had of Nicholas. He seemed more down to earth, but everyone wore their disguises. Scarlet stopped just as she stepped into the dock. She felt nervous about meeting him before, but now she felt a lick of fear that warned her to turn around. She didn't owe Nicholas anything. Most people did not take rejections well, and it seemed especially unwise to reject Nicholas on this boat, which he easily tossed her over the side of, or sail away with her, still on board. She turned around. Scarlet wanted to be brave, but she didn't want to be foolish. "Scarlet? Are you Scarlet Ragna?" The voice didn't sound Nicholas. "Run, hide, scream." Her feelings turned bright warning red. She started to run, but it was already too late. The black bag went over her head. "Let me go!" Scarlet tried to rip the bag off as she screamed, but her hands were yanked behind her and roughly tied together. "Be careful with her," the new voice commanded. "He wants his daughter undamaged." Chapter 24 Tella. Tella didn't know what pure anticipation smelled like until she reached Legend's midnight maze. The scent of red clothes and growing leaves fermented everything. She had expected simply leafy green hedges, but she should have known better than to attach the word "simple" to anything involving Legend. Each living wall was formed of different rare flowers, burning orange starfire lilies, deep purple twilight thistles, brilliant gold creeping daisies, champagne delights, scorching red favor balls, all of which grew and stretched with every person that stepped inside. During her first carnival, Tella had learned emotions were one of the things that fueled magic, making her wonder if Legend became stronger the more people enjoyed his party, and as a result, the glamour and delusion of the party also grew. Not that Tella had seen Legend, but she heard a few whispers about how magnificent his handsomeness looked tonight. Apparently, the nickname hadn't just been part of her dream, but Tella still felt the possessive urge to snap at anyone who uttered it. Her nerves over what Legend might ask and how she would respond tacked, nodding her up as she slipped deeper into the maze. The fireflies had arrived, making everyone she passed appear a little enchanted as their laughter and flirtatious trip over her head. Contrary to what the main name implied, in the midnight maze did not begin at midnight. It started around sundown, where the horizon was a battle of colors, as if the clouds were trying to break free from the sky. They were probably attempting to reach the maze, which was full of even more colors. Telek wouldn't have been surprised if some of it was Legend's doing. With so many enthusiastic emotions swirling around the maze, his magic should have been growing stronger. Perhaps that was another reason why he wanted to go through with hosting the maze. He needed it to heal his powers before the fates finished waking him. Oh, look! A nearby partygoer exclaimed. The door just sprung open in the middle of the hedge. Let's see if it takes us to the center of the maze. Tella heard a rustle of dancing skirts and muttered, Gentlemen first. Then the giggling pack of people in front of her were gone, vanished through a door bursting with celestial blue dragon snaps that disappeared along with them. Only a hovering parade of fireflies and a patch of near silence remained. All Tella would hear was a flutter of wings, soft as dreamy lullabies and delicate as butterflies. Her skin tickled with fluttering that she only usually felt in her stomach as she looked down to see her dress coming to life with the beat of 100 wings. Tella laughed. Butterflies burst free from a skirt that had been animated only moments ago. Legend was there. He had to be nervy. He was bringing her dress to life and making the maze shift in front of her eyes. It moved more rapidly than before, growing taller and thicker and stronger. Leafy explanations formed at the top of it, giving everything an enchanted castle-like appearance. She chased after the butterflies, leaping off her dress until she found a glowing archway formed of dazzling white diamonds, peonies. As soon as she was through the arch, the flowers moved behind her, sealing her away from the rest of the party, and leaving her alone with Legend. She took several heartbeats just to drink him in. A dusting of bronze light surrounded him, making his skin glow and his eyes look a little brighter, as Legend leaned against the leafy wall on the opposite side of the enclosure. He was dressed in shadows of charcoal black, except for the deep red trousers he wore, tucked into tall, polished boots. His coat was longer than usual, nearly to the ground, with regal high collar lined in intricate thread, the same color as the bronze light surrounding him, as if bits of the setting sun had stayed behind just to cling to him. You're such a show-off, she teased. He gave her a devastating grin. Only when I'm trying to impress a girl. His eyes took her time, looking her over, sparkling a little as they lingered on the delicate ribbons that made up her bodice, before finally meeting her eyes. You're beautiful. He pushed off the wall and stalked closer. But for once, instead of hearing the confident stride of his boots, all she could hear were the words that had written in his note. I meant what I said about wanting you. More butterflies took off from her skirt as Legend stopped right in front of her, close enough to touch. The world no longer smelled like anticipation. It smelled like him, like magic and heartbeat. Please don't break my heart again, she thought. Even if she didn't ask him to marry her, he looked as if he was going to ask for something. The secluded corner of the maze was growing brighter, full of infinite stars that glittered and danced and shined. But Legend's gaze remained firmly on hers, intent and intense, and as intimate as any touch. Her breathing turned shallow. His mouth twitched at the corner. I was scared of you already. Are you trying to scare me? I thought I already told you I'm only trying to keep you. His lips brushed a kiss to hers. The maze, the part of the world that disappeared. His mouth was soft and then it was gone. It happened so fast. Tella might have thought she imagined it, if not for the teasing glimmer in his eyes. I came here to claim a prize not to be played with. Tella held out a hand as if to collect. Legend laughed, and deep and rumbling. I've always wanted to play with you, but tonight I'm not playing. I want to, Don Tella Dragna. I've never felt like this about anybody, and I've never asked anyone this either. His voice dropped so low, it made her toes curl inside her slippers, and half the butterflies on her skirt take flight. Scarlet was right. He was going to propose. His eyes grew lighter, and his smile turned tempting. I want to keep you, Tella. I want to make you immortal. Everything inside of Tella went still. Immortal? He was asking to make her immortal, not to marry him. I'd say you could take all the time you need to think about it, but now that the fates are awake, I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to risk losing you. Legend's hands wrapped around her waist. He looked as if he wanted to kiss her again, but this time it wouldn't be just a quick brush of his lips. She would feel his hands growing hotter as his fingers spread over her rib cage. As she leaned in, he kissed her until it consumed her, until she couldn't breathe without him, and she gasped yes to whatever he asked. Tella left him hold on, but she didn't lean in. She hadn't been entirely prepared for him to propose, and she definitely wasn't prepared For this? I'm not sure I know what you're asking. Are you offering to make me one of your performers? No. His fingers stroked up and down her waist. You'd be different. My performers aren't immortal, just ageless. My magic keeps them from growing old, but I can only bring them back to life during Carvel, when my power is at its peak. Outside of Carvel, there's nothing I can do for them. But as an immortal, if you die, you would always come back. No one can kill you. You never grow old or weak or fail. You'll be young and strong and alive forever. The lights around them glittered like gems, spinning and whirling and promising that a forever with Legend will be full of magic as well. It'd be like living in one of his dreams, but for some reason, Tella couldn't bring herself to say yes. Legend's mouth turned down, and his hands tightened around her waist. I thought you'd be more excited. This way, we can be together. He looked as if he wanted to kiss her, but rather than lean in, his fingers toyed with the ribbons of her bodice, carefully loosening them, so his hands could reach through the brush of her bare back. Her eyes fluttered shut. Only the tips of his fingers touched her skin, but Tella felt it everywhere. He told her that he wasn't playing with her tonight, but he definitely was. Though she wondered if he even realized it. People didn't really matter to Legend. People were game pieces inside of his world. He even turned the witch who created him into a sacrifice pawn so that he could go on, and yet, despite everything, Tella wanted to believe he didn't see her that way. Rather than persevere herself, she wanted to persevere. She wanted to believe he wouldn't break her heart again. She wanted to believe he wasn't manipulating her, that she was his one exception. Maybe Legend didn't know how to make exceptions. Maybe he deceived everyone. He said he never had feelings like this before, and he'd never offered to make anyone immortal, but he's not bothered to mention that the one weakness she learned about last night. Immortals cannot love. Love is a poison to us. Love and immortality cannot coexist. On very rare occasions, we come across humans who tempt us to love. If our immortals feel love for even a minute, they become human for that minute. If the feelings last too long, their immortality becomes permanent. Suddenly, everything became clear. Tella understood why Legend showed up in her dreams, but kept his distance, refusing to touch her until tonight. Right before making an offer to change her. Last night, she thought Legend had real feelings for her. That he could love her, but it was the opposite. Legend wasn't changing. He was hoping to change her. And she didn't believe it was so that she wouldn't die. Legend wanted to make her immortal so that he wouldn't die. He didn't love her. He was afraid of falling in love with her because love was his one weakness. If Legend loved her, he'd lose his immortality and become human. But he wouldn't have to worry about it if she was immortal because immortals couldn't love each other. Immortals felt obsession, fixation, lust, possession, and Legend was clearly experiencing those things. Tella sensed it with every press of his fingers as he continued to toy with the ribbons of her bodice and brush hot touches against her skin. She jolted back, eyes opening as she ripped free from his arms. Legend blazed brighter, the bronze light around him making everything glow. He usually looked human, but for some instants he looked painfully immortal while his perfect lips pulled into a frown. What's wrong? Last night, I found out what your weakness is. His shoulders stiffened. What were you told? That if you come across a human who makes you feel love, then you become immortal. And if the feeling lasts too long, then the change becomes permanent. Which makes me think that you don't want to change me or keep me alive. You only want to change me to keep yourself alive. No. His answer was unyielding and immediate. That's not why I want to do this. I want you to be immortal so that you won't die. But I don't want your immortality, Legend. I want your love. He took a step back. She didn't even think he realized he was doing it. I can't give you that. Yes, you can. You just refuse to choose love over immortality? The light in his eyes went out and the world became a little darker. Even if that was true, could you blame me? No, Tella said honestly. But I don't want to be like you. That's why I can't let you make me immortal. His eyes met hers again. The light was still gone, but they shimmered in a way that reminded her of all the magical things he could offer. You'll feel differently if you let me change you. But I don't want to feel differently. I want to feel love in its every form. I used to be so scared of it, but now I think love is another type of magic. It makes everything better. It makes people who have it stronger. It breaks rules that aren't supposed to exist. It's infinitely valuable. I can't imagine my world without it, and if you felt any love in your heart, you would understand. Tella met his darkened eyes. The flicker of pain fell over his face, but whether it was real or to convince her, or to go along with what he wanted, Tella couldn't tell. "You'll die, Tella." "I already have." "But you won't come back this time." "Most people don't." "But that's not why you're offering me this. This makes it easier for you. You don't want to love me and lose your immortality." His mouth parted and closed and parted again, and for a brief moment before he spoke he looked entirely lost. "It's not that I don't want to love you, Tella. I can't love you." His voice was flat and empty and utterly sincere. It didn't just sound as if he was saying this because he was immortal, but because he truly believed that he was incapable of feeling. If that was true, if he really thought himself heartless, then maybe he hadn't eventually been tempted to love her. Maybe he just wanted to possess her. "I want to keep you." "You're not thinking this true." Legend reached for her hand. A week ago her heart would have soared because he wanted to touch her, but she forced herself to take another step back. She wasn't tempted by immortality, but she was tempted by him. She couldn't touch him again if she was going to do this. "I don't need to think about it. Sometimes you just know. And I know that I can't imagine spending an eternity with someone who will never love me." She turned to leave. "Tell, wait." She pressed forward. She didn't even let herself look back. The archway she'd walked through to meet him was gone. A flowering wall had taken its place. The velvety petals felt real against her skin, and she knew it was just an illusion. Almost as soon as she touched them, Legend parted the flowers and hedge branches to let her through. The leafy passage before her was dimmer than she remembered. The fireflies had gone and the chill had crept into their place. Bumps crawled over the back of her neck. The chill could have felt good after her heated conversation, but the wind sweeping through was fleeting and wrong, a dream gone awry. Then she strained to hear it, but there was no more distant, pretty laughter. Any footsteps she picked up were harsh, bleeding. Something was wrong. "Tella?" Legend grabbed her hand, appearing by her side. "Please let me go." "This isn't about us." He cut her off. His grip on her tightened. He winced, face paling as the glow through them faded. "What's wrong?" Tella asked. More frantic footsteps echoed in the distance, followed by a series of muffled cries. Leaves poured off the walls and the maze decaying as they fell to the ground. "Get out of here." Legend said, "Go to the tower and lock yourself in your room." "I'm not locking myself in a tower." "Then run away. If you ever do anything for me, do this. I think the fates are here." Then his lips were on hers, severe, quick, hot, and gone far too soon. Tella stumbled forward as he let her go. The maze around them was just a series of skeletal branches and rotting leaves. Tella could see right through them. "Are the fates doing this?" "Tella, just go," Legend roared. The foul scent in the air grew stronger and sweeter, thick and charmed, sweet, like death on two shadowy figures appeared on the other side of the hedge. The blood in Tella's veins froze. The pale woman wore a jeweled eye patch, and the man had a great gash slicing along his throat as his head had been severed and put back on his neck. The murdered king and the undead queen. Her knees buckled and her throat went dry. Tella grabbed for Legend's hand to get him to flee with her, but a fresh hedge sprung up between them, cutting her off. "No!" She banged her fist against the hedge, spinally, prickly, and entirely leafless branches. It was weaker than her earlier illusion, but it was enough to form a barrier between them. "Prince Dante," the murdered king said slowly. "I wonder if his sister will call you Dante the Dead, or just forget you altogether after tonight." "Tragic," cooed the queen. "Your face would have looked marvelous on a coin." Before Tella could catch another word, the prickly hedge before her moved. It pressed against her chest, forcing her to stumble back faster and faster. It chopped against her, hurting her further away from Legend and the fates. "That bastard!" Legend was using his magic to push her away, and she was powerless to stop him. The fates would come for him. She wanted to turn around, to battle against the wall at her back, and return to Legend, but the magical wall was relentless, and she hated to admit there was nothing she could do against the fates except hope that he was stronger. She survived when the undead queen and her handmaidens had tried to kill her. Legend would survive as well. He had to. Ahead of her, the palace glowed, moon bright against the black sky, the only spot on earth that didn't seem to be in pandemonium. The rest of the grounds were still dark. All the lights of the party were now vanquished, and Tella could hear people scrabbling to leave the maze, as its branches began to crack and crumble. There was still a few occasional giggles and laughs. Some people must have thought this was all part of the game. If it had been Caravel, Tella would have believed the same. She have imagined this was the Legend's plan, but she felt his fear when he kissed her and then forced her away. Tail's feet burned as the slippers crashed against the ground, while the hedge continued to shove at her back, but scraped against the earth. She could sense the churning of dirt and hear the crush of its branches, and the ground beneath Tail shook. She told herself to keep running, but she couldn't hear the hedge anymore. When she slowed it, she didn't feel it on her back, and when she turned, she did not see it. The hedge, the maze, the butterflies. Fluttering all over her skirt, everything that had been at the party was gone. All that remained were thick spires of smoke, twisting upward. No, 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 no. Tella didn't know if she shouted the words, if she gasped them, or if she just thought them. She knew there was only one reason Legends magic would suddenly stop. He was dead. No! This time she definitely shouted the word. Then her legs gave out and she fell to her knees.